Say thank you, Minister, for being here with us today to speak on Bill C-30. But I also want to note that I very much appreciate that you've mentioned that you're very happy to take questions on inflation. Inflation is indeed an extraordinarily important study that is before our committee right now. And I'm also very happy that my colleagues on the other side are taking the opportunity to ask questions. You've been talking a little bit about the pandemic, and you've mentioned some of the positive things that have, some of the positive track record that we have as we're coming out of COVID. And we indeed have had a remarkable return to growth coming out of the lockdown days of COVID. You've mentioned the top GDP growth of G7 this year, the recovery of over 100% of our jobs, and our low debt to GDP ratio. But I will say to you, despite all of this, if I talk to people in my riding of Davenport, they will say that they continue to be worried. They see the rising cost of food. They see that in general their costs of living are going up. And for them, they're a little bit worried because it's unpredictable for them. And it seems like there's no end in sight. So I know we have a number of new targeted measures that we're introducing to help with the increased cost of living. But can you maybe spend a minute or two to tell us why it continues to be important for Canadians to be contributing to the Canada Pension Plan as well as to employment insurance?
Thank you very much, Ms. Jurwitz. And let me just say, for Canadians who are struggling with the cost of living, I think it's important for all of us sitting around this table in the House of Commons to recognize that the challenges Canadians are facing are real, and that all of us are addressing those challenges from a really privileged position. Things are hard for a lot of people right now. The bill that we are chiefly discussing today won't solve everything, and I think it's important for us not to claim otherwise. But it will provide real support, real inflation relief for 11 million Canadian households, for people who really need that help. And I think that is why all of us around the table now support it. I hope that we will all see our way to supporting the $500 payments, one-time payments, to help Canadians who are struggling to pay their rent. Again, that's a targeted measure for people who are renting, among the most vulnerable among us. And then finally, I do want to offer a pitch for dental care. I know people in your riding and in mine talk about it a lot. And, I have to say, and I will turn to Mr. Julian to recognize the work we are doing together with the NDP on this. But I think for all of us, if we step back, I think, and I hope that all of us would agree, Canada shouldn't be a place where a kid doesn't get to go to the dentist just because their parents don't have enough money. You referred to the CPP and EI, and I'm glad you raised those two essential programs. You're right. The reality today is that the global economy is volatile. There are a lot of challenges. Countries around the world are grappling with high inflation, higher, in fact, than here in Canada. The war in Ukraine continues. And I strongly believe that in these times of uncertainty, it is our responsibility as legislators to give Canadians the security that comes from knowing your pension is going to be there when you retire and you need it. EI is going to be there if you lose your job. And that's why our government strongly believes that it would be a real mistake and a dereliction of our duty towards Canadians to do anything to harm the integrity of these two essential programs.